All right, in this video, guys, you can see I'm already kind of at the end of the process here, but I'm doing a intro video at the end for the beginning. I didn't have the wine studio at the very beginning, so I'm creating that intro video now. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a Honeycrisp apple wine using Honeycrisp actual juice, which is a pain to clear, by the way, as you'll see in the video, and Honeycrisp apples. We're already at bottling day here, but I'm going to take you back in the past. All the steps that you'll need to make this wine are in this video, so let's go get started. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm making a wine that I'm super excited about. I haven't made, so I'm very interested to see how this is going to turn out. One of my favorite apples, Honeycrisp apples. We're going to be using 3 gallons of treetop apple juice. This is just pure apple juice, no sugar added, no sulfites, nothing like that. This is just as pure as it gets. And then we're going to be using 11.93 pounds. I was shooting for 10, but I got, after I cored them and took the seeds out, I got 11.93 pounds, so we're just going to go ahead and roll with it, of Honeycrisp apples. They were beautiful last night. The reason they look a little bit brown right now is because I froze them overnight and then I defrosted them this morning so we can use it. Why do I freeze the fruit? I freeze almost all fruit that I use, including sometimes even grape varietals like Zinfandel, Riesling, what have you. And the reason I do that is because we get more juice out of the actual fruit because it breaks down those cell walls, splits the skins, and it just releases more of the juice overall. So freezing is always not a bad idea if you've got the time and the room to do it. So what we're going to do is talk about all the things that go into this wine today. It's going to be a kind of a detailed breakdown. I'm going to explain to you all the additives, and this is going to be a 1-part and 1-part only video. So at the end of this video, we'll have a tasting, and you will have the step-by-step process of how to exactly make this Honeycrisp apple wine that hopefully is going to be amazing. So let's get started. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the additives, the fruit, the juice, everything we got going on, the size of the batch. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll notice that a lot of the recipes in terms of additives is going to be about the same. And that's just because the doses are called for about the same, regardless of that. There are some exceptions to that rule, and I'll talk about that in a different video. But for this one, it's going to be the same. So we're going to use half a teaspoon of pectic enzyme. This is going to be to help break down that pectin and start the early refining process, if you will. It helps get rid of that haze early on. But what it also does is it pulls out every bit of juice because it breaks down the pectin in the cell walls to release all the juice. So your yield is actually slightly higher with pectic enzyme, half a teaspoon per gallon. Wine tannin we're going to add in because generally speaking, there is some tannin in the skins of apples, very little. But what we're going to do is add some wine tannin, some mouthfeel, excuse me, and give you a little bit more of that tannin structure, if you will. We're going to use potassium metabisulfite, also known as Campden tablets, 1 tablet per gallon. And then we're going to add in a mixed acid blend, and this is going to be a half a teaspoon per gallon. So these are pretty easy, half teaspoon, half teaspoon, half teaspoon per gallon. All right, all I'm going to do is shake up this juice, and then it actually even has its own sediment in there. So I wonder how that will work in the clearing process. But let's see what the actual current sugar content is of this particular juice. All right, so you can see here we have about, you get this so you can see it. And you'll notice on the must stage, I will use the ABV or the percentage. And if you can see that, I can just see there that we're at a 6% of sugar right now. So that if we didn't put any sugar in this brew or this wine, and we fermented it and it fermented to 1.000, we would have a 6% alcohol by volume wine. But we want a larger, bolder wine, right? So we are shooting for a 13.5%. So 7.5 plus 6 would put us at 13.5. So we're going to add enough sugar to this, which would put us at 13.5%, which is going to be 7.5% increase that we need from the current juice sugar content. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to pour our juice in first before the additives. Trust me, do that. Don't just put the additives into a bucket. By the way, if I didn't mention it, every single thing that you see in my videos is sanitized. That's an important part. I should have mentioned that in the beginning, but everything is sanitized. So don't add your additives into a dry bucket or even a slightly moist bucket at the bottom with maybe some sanitizer, because they will stick, the wine tannin especially. Put in your juice or your water or whatever you're going to be using first. That way your additives have a better chance of mixing in, or easier, let's say. So let's go ahead and get the 3 gallons of the treetop apple juice in. All right, so let's go ahead and get our first set of additives in. And right now we're going to go ahead and dose it for the 3 gallons. All right, right, so there is going to be our mound of sugar we're going to be adding in. 3 pounds and 13 ounces of sugar. And that is hopefully going to get us pretty close to our 13.5% range. Remember, we're starting at 6. We need 7.5% increase. So I did the math, and it's about 3 pounds, 13 ounces. Let's see what this gets for us. We don't want to overshoot it too much. And if we undershoot it, that's fine. We'll just add a little bit more. And then remember, once we add in our apples, it may change even more. So let's go ahead and get this in. Again, that drill comes in very handy. A lot of people will then dissolve this into water, which I don't disagree with, that's fine. But in this particular batch, I do not want to do that. I don't want to add any sugar in. I want it to be the pure apple juice, the pure apple, and sugar. I don't want any additional fluids or anything else in it. So for right now, we're just going to pour the sugar in. We're going to use our drill there to mix the sugar, make sure it gets all the way incorporated, take another reading with our hydrometer, and then we'll see where we're at. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, pretty darn close. So if you can see that, we're at about 12.5%. We're only 1% off of where we want to be at, but we want to be at 13.5 at least. So what we're going to do is go ahead and add in about another ½ pound of sugar and see if we can hit our target of 13.5%. All right, there is our 8 ounces. Pound is 16 ounces, so we have a ½ pound of sugar. Let's get that into the must, and we're just at about, let me see if I can get that in focus for you guys, 13.5%. So 10, 11, 12, 13, just a hair under that 13.5. If I turn this over, show you the specific gravity. This is when you're fine tuning things. When you're gross turn, I guess for lack of a better term, when you're gross tuning your ABV, the percentage is fine. But when you start to fine tune it, it's when you want to turn around to the specific gravity. So we're at about 1.102 specific gravity. If you're interested and you want to make your brew exactly the same, if we ferment from 1.102 down to 1.100, we're going to end up with about a 13.38% alcohol by volume wine. So just keep that in mind. That's close enough to my 13.5 mark. So let's go ahead and get the fruit crushed. Get our apples in there. One thing I love about this hopper here is that the size of it, it can hold a fair amount. Remember, we have 11.93 pounds of apples here. And this can hold almost all of it, so without having to keep adding in, but let's get that crushed. All right, so there you have it. There is our crushed up Honeycrisp beautiful apple. If you could smell this, it smells like a freaking apple orchard. It smells awesome. Don't worry if yours is not as smashed up as this. Again, with that overall crusher that I'm using. If you have a potato smasher and yours doesn't look exactly like this, it's fine. All you're looking to do is just break up the fruit, get the juice out, and get it released. So let's go ahead and get this secured up. And we're going to do that really well. So we pull that nice and tight. And then we're going to take the string of our must bag here and roll that around the top, pulling it tight every time that we come around. And the reason that we're doing that is because we don't want any of that fine pulp to come out. On the last little round here, what we'll do is shove this under itself, and I'll show you the next super secure step. So just kind of pull that. Now we're going to add in our silicone zip tie. I absolutely freaking love these things. So these can be sanitized, used over and over and over and over. And I'll put that right around this, and just for some extra security. And this will ensure as we stir this up over the next 5 days, once we add our yeast, that this bag stays closed. We don't want any of that stuff coming out. Again, the refining process for wine starts at the first must. Remember that. All right, all nice and cozy in the fermentation room. So here it will sit for the next 24 hours. All right, so it has been 26 hours. The lid's off our bucket here. This smells great. I could smell. I took the lid off and walked away for a second and came back. This, I guess with the apple juice and all the apples incorporated, it smells awesome, like an orchard. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our yeast, what I like to call the yeast bomb right now. But before we do that, I always take a second. You'll see me take hydrometer readings a lot, probably more than most, but I always take another hydrometer reading. And this is giving it 26 hours now to incorporate, to set up for all of the contained water inside of the fruit to come out. And you can see we lost a little bit of dilution there. So we went from that just over 13%, and we are like on the dot right now with 12.5%. So this is, if it ferments to 1.000, we're gonna get a 12.5% wine, which is perfectly fine. I'm not going to add any sugar at this point to boost it up to that 13.5. 12.5 will be perfect. It might even be even better for this apple wine. All right, so welcome to the science table. There is some science behind wine and mead making. So I'm just going to show you what I call the yeast bomb here. It's almost guaranteed to get a good fermentation, at least a good start to the fermentation. Here we have warmed water. It's about 126 degrees right now. It's too hot to add our yeast. We're going to be using 1 packet of K1V1116. Love this stuff, especially for fruit wines. And then we are going to be using 1 tablespoon of just white sugar, which we're actually going to pour in right now while it's nice and hot. And we're going to get a lid on. Again, everything's been sanitized. And we're just going to get that nice and dissolved. So get that sugar nice and dissolved. It's also going to cool the sugar down. I'm sorry, it's also going to cool the water down by adding the sugar. So you'll see it drop pretty dramatically. What we're looking for is about 90 to 95 degrees to then add our yeast. And this is going to give our yeast a good starting point. You can see that steam coming off. It's still a little bit hot. That sugar is pretty much dissolved. What I'm also going to do is we're going to add in 0.2 grams. Sounds small, right? But this is strong stuff. 0.2 grams of our Fermade K. That's also going to kind of give it a kickstart here. Got a little bit stuck in the glass there. And we're going to shake that up. Get that Fermade K nice and incorporated in there. Here, in this jar, all I have is about 6-7 tablespoons of the must, straight from the fermentation bucket. And I'll tell you how that's gonna go in. Today, we will also be adding our first dose of Fermade O. There's 0.6 grams per gallon of Fermade O in here. Fermade K's little brother, but this is just yeast hulls and natural way to increase the nitrogen and the overall nutrient inside that must for our yeast to get started. All right, so we are at our 95 degrees there. And you can look right on the back of your yeast packet, whichever you choose to use. If you're going to use the K1V1116, it says 95 to 98.6 degrees is kind of that. It's kind of that perfect zone. And then we're just going to sprinkle the whole pack. Again, we're just gently spreading this amongst, think about it as suspending it on top of the water there. That's about how gentle you want to do it. And that table sugar that we put in and that little tiny bit of DAP via the Fermade K is really going to kickstart this yeast to start converting the small amounts of sugar in this mason jar even then. So you'll see that it'll start to bubble. So we'll add this, we'll come back 15 minutes and we'll incorporate some of our must. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. You can see we're starting to get a little bit of action here with our yeast. We're going to add in 2 tablespoons of our must here. And what we're going to do is just swirl this nice and gently around, kind of getting the yeast off the sides, making sure everything's incorporated, not really shaking, just kind of stirring it up. 15 minutes, do it again. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. Now we will add in the rest of our must here. It's probably about 4 tablespoons, give or take. I'll just go ahead and pour that in. Give it a stir, get it all incorporated. You can see all that foam, which means that our yeast is getting activated. Now we're going to let it sit for the next 30 minutes and then we'll pitch it into the must. All right, so it's been 30 minutes now, and I'll put the mic next to the yeast bomb here so you can actually hear the yeast kind of sizzling. So that's what we're looking for. We got a nice foam. That means that our yeast has acclimated well to the must, and we'll go ahead and pitch that into the must. Fermade O, kind of just get that in there. So we'll put our yeast in. All right. In about 24 hours, by tomorrow, we should start to see the beginning of some fermentation there. And for the next 5 days, we will be stirring this morning and night to introduce some oxygen, because during the initial fermentation process, oxygen is needed for the yeast to be healthy inside of the must and to convert that sugar into alcohol. Put the lid on it, and we will be back in 24 hours. All right, so there you can see less than 24 hours. It's been about, I don't know, I guess about 18 hours. And that yeast has jump started and is fermenting that sugar into alcohol. This is exactly what we want. And again, we're going to stir this for the next 4 days. So this will be day 1, but for the next 4 days, twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. All right, finally, guess what day it is? It is racking day to our secondary. So our primary fermentation is done. It is at 1.000. It was a fairly long fermentation, primary fermentation that is. It was 20 days today that it took to get down to that. So let's go ahead and get this racked over to a new vessel to start secondary in our refining process. And we're gonna go ahead and add our bentonite. All right, so first things first, we have all of our sanitized equipment over here. Auto siphon, racking cane, all that kind of stuff, the stuff that you're always gonna need. Our star sand there. I'm gonna go ahead and press the apples out of here and get all that nice wine that we've made out of there now. And then I'm gonna reincorporate that back in here. You don't need to do this. You'll see this in all my videos. This is linked down below. I have this big one and a smaller one. It really does help the wine maintain that bold flavor. And also it gets us all of our wine out of that must bag, because you'll see there's a lot that's trapped in there. So we wanna push it all out, get it incorporated. This process is not absolutely necessary. You could just drain that bag to the best of your ability and then go ahead and start racking it. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, so now we're just gonna reincorporate that back in. All that good wine. Nice. All right, as expected, we got exactly what we wanted here. I'm gonna move over a little bit from here to allow for that bentonite to go in there and that to be a little bit lesser headspace. Remember, oxygen is our enemy now. We want to keep oxygen to a minimum. There's our gross lees there at the bottom that we're able to get out of our wine. So let's go ahead and get our first bentonite in. All right, so what we have here is our bentonite and our hot water. So essentially what I do is just put this in the microwave until I see it just start to bubble, and then I take it out. So you can imagine this is extremely hot. That's what you need for bentonite to incorporate properly. For this, we're gonna be using half a cup and then 2 teaspoons of this per mason jar. I use mason jars so that I can put a lid on them because bentonite is not easy to mix and then to shake it up. So we'll go ahead and get this in. A little bit of a pro tip here, just sprinkle, don't pour. So sprinkle it around so that it's evenly distributed for all your bentonite there. All right, so that's kind of the consistency we're looking for. See that in there, kind of a clay, milky substance overall. So we'll let that cool off and then we'll get into the wine. All right, our bentonite is nice and incorporated. Make sure you agitate it really well. So I shook this a lot with the cap on here to make sure. That's why you see all the bubbles here. It's very important for bentonite to be agitated. And with this one, use my handy dandy partner here and stirred it with the stirring wand so you can see all the activity is already going on here. So I'm gonna get these back on the fermentation table. They're gonna sit there for the next at least probably 7 days, maybe longer. And I will show you what it looks like whenever it's done. All right, so it has been about 8 days since we put our bentonite into the apple wine here. And as you can see, not much of a change. So if you remember the Honeycrisp apple juice that we started with as a base, which I have some right here, in and of itself, so you have some natural particles in the juice itself, which I knew this was going to be hard to clear, and it may not come perfectly clear, but I do want it to be clearer than this. So apples is one of the highest fruits when it comes to winemaking in pectin, and pectin can cause a haze just like we see here. And unfortunately, bentonite, although it can work on it, our next refining agent, Super Clear, really won't do anything with pectin haze. So what we're going to do is, and we did add in some of our standard pectic enzyme treatment whenever we made our must, about a half a teaspoon per gallon. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna add in a stronger pectic enzyme dose, and we're gonna see if that helps out and give it another week and see if there's any kind of change in terms of the haze with this. So we would normally use a half a teaspoon per gallon. We're gonna use a full teaspoon per gallon. So we'll be using 1 teaspoon for our 1 gallon, have some wine out here, and then some wine out here from our 3 gallon, and we'll be using 3 teaspoons full in our 3 gallon here. We'll mix that in gently, make sure it's incorporated, but it's gonna be dissolved fully in this. So we'll slowly mix it in. I'm not gonna obliterate this with shaking and spinning. I'm gonna slowly mix it in. All right, so today we are going to be racking again our apple wine. This is one of been, and I knew that this was gonna be the case if you remember the way that apple juice was, that it was gonna be a harder wine to clear. We may not get it all the way clear, which is perfectly fine. But we hit the bentonite and it was in that for about, if I recall, 8 to 10 days. We racked it out of the bentonite to let everything else settle out again before we put the Super Clear in. It's been about another week sitting just like this. You can see, I call it kind of that round color that's coming out. So what we're gonna do, I think, is we're gonna rack this again, get it off the little bit of lees that's here, and then we're gonna go ahead and get the super clear into it, let the super clear sit until it gets as clear as we want it to be, and then we'll go ahead and filter it. But let's go ahead and get this racked. All right, so it's been 24 hours. We're gonna go ahead and give our apple wine a little bit of a taste here and check the CO2 on the tongue. It's gonna be the best indicator. I didn't see any bubbles when I put the carboy on top of the table here. Just gonna take a little bit out, test it real quick, and see if we're at that appropriate CO2 level. Normally you don't have to go this far in terms of taste testing it and etc. You can just kind of see visually, but this one had a lot of CO2 still in it. All right, so that is completely different from yesterday. It's now a still wine. This is perfect environment now for our super clear. We'll go ahead and get our first part of our super clear added in, our ketasol. That's gonna sit here for an hour. Gonna go ahead and agitate that up. So let's go ahead and get our bung off here. We're just gonna use our sanitized funnel. If you don't have one, I'd highly suggest that you get one. Go ahead and get that in. Okay, that's in, so we're just gonna go ahead and agitate this up with the drill. We just wanna make sure it gets nice and incorporated, so when it meets up with its partner in an hour, the Cheeto sand, it binds together, it's nicely incorporated, and it starts to really clear this wine out. So I'll see you guys back in an hour. Don't forget, go ahead and agitate yours. I'm just not gonna put that on video. All right, so it has been 1 hour since we added our ketasol. We're gonna go ahead and add in our Cheeto sand now. You may be wondering why I have a spoon in a mason jar here. So this has a 1 ounce warm water in it. What we're gonna do, and a sanitized spoon, sanitized mason jar, sanitized funnel. What we're gonna do is go ahead and add in our Cheeto sand into this warm water, and we're gonna go ahead and get it dissolved. Cheeto sand doesn't really, I don't know, dissolve, but it mixes in. Just kind of dilutes it a little bit, I guess, makes it easier to incorporate into the wine. Funnel on there. And the key to adding in Cheeto sand is we're gonna add it in very slowly, drips at a time, essentially. That's why these funnels come in so handy. If you can see, this funnel is exactly the same width as this mason jar. Basically, we're doing that because we wanna make sure that it slowly works its way from the top of the wine down to the bottom. It's gonna meet up with that ketasol and create a bond. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna pull all those particulates that are suspended within the wine down to the bottom over the course of the next 24 to 72 hours usually. Usually in about 48 hours, you get a real nice refining reaction. But in this case, remember this wine, I don't even know if it's gonna clear all the way. We'll see. It may take a long time for this to clear, or it may not clear at all, but we're gonna give it our best shot here. So let's get this in. One thing I did wanna mention is I'm doing the YouTube instruction here. So I have my carboy up on the table here to show you guys that. But if you were doing this at home, you would want to make sure that you are already in the fermentation room or bedroom or wherever you're going to put your carboy at, because you don't really want to move the carboy after you add in your Cheeto sand. You don't want really any kind of agitation. So I'll slowly move this over to my aging rack over there, and we'll see what happens in the next 48 to 72 hours and come back. All right, guys, it has been about 30, 45 days. I'll get an exact tomorrow, but I think about 35 to 45 days to finally get our Honeycrisp apple wine clear. This is actually after I filtered it as well. It might even take you longer. The filter did remove a little bit of the cloudiness that was still left behind in it, but this was after super clear. So we are 24 hours before bottling. I've already filtered mine. 99.99% of you are not going to filter yours. So at this point, before we do what's next, please go ahead and rack your wine, put it into a new vessel, and then come back to the video. Once you've done that, I've already went ahead and sulfided my wine because I measure my sulfides, so I get very tedious when it comes to putting mine in. But all you're gonna do is go ahead and put in 1 tab of Campden tablets per gallon. So if you have a 3-gallon batch, you'll put in 3 tablets of the Campden tablets. If you ended up like I did after I filtered it, I did lose some, which is I'm okay with that because of the sterile filter process that I go through. I lose more than what you guys will lose. But if you have about what I have, I would add in about 2.5 tabs of the Campden tablets. If you have 1 gallon, 1 tab, etc. So go ahead and put those in. What I have here is just, and you can put them into a mason jar just like this with some of the wine. What I have here is potassium sorbate. I have 1.5 teaspoons of potassium sorbate, so a half a teaspoon per gallon. This is gonna go in. It's a good thing to put all these in about 24 hours prior to. Let's set up and be prepared for the sugar that we're about to add tomorrow, because we're gonna make this a sweet wine. So we wanna make sure that potassium is set up properly. So go ahead and add yours in. I'm gonna add mine in. Don't freak out, it's gonna get cloudy cloudy at first whenever you add yours in, but just go ahead and stir that up with a sanitized stirring wand here, and it will clear right back up in about probably less than a minute, honestly. So let me go ahead and do that, we'll come back. All right, you can see, got a little bit cloudy there. I'm just gonna stir this in and get it nice and incorporated. And as soon as that dissolves, it'll kind of snap clear. It's kind of neat, but it doesn't take very long at all. And if you did add sulfites, so my sulfites have already kind of incorporated. If you went ahead and added your sulfites here, there you go. It's already snapping clear mid-sentence there. But if you did add your sulfites at this point, it might take a little bit longer to clear and there might be a little bit more bubbles, but I had added mine a little bit sooner. So look at that, bam, perfectly clear, less than a minute. All right, let's get this out of here. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put my airlock back on. I'm gonna go ahead and put my airlock back on now, and tomorrow is my favorite day. Should be your favorite too. It took a lot of effort to get here, but tomorrow is bottling. So 24 hours from now, I will see you then and we will get this bottled up. All right, it is bottling day. We have everything on the table that we need to get bottled. We have our bottles on the bottle tree, all nice and sanitized. Probably can't see it up here, but I also have the corks that are sitting in sanitizer. We have our scale, we have a funnel, we have the mason jar that we're gonna be putting our sugar into. We have 2 tasting glasses here. One will be the base, so I'll put some original of the apple wine into this before we sweeten anything at all. That will let us know how far we're getting off of our base for our tasting as we continue to sweet this till we get to where we'd like to be at. Obviously, we have our wine. If you watch any of my videos, you know that I use a mason jar to add in the sugar for the back sweetening, and that's so that I can agitate the wine in here, not agitate the overall batch of wine and add unnecessary oxygen to that. So what I'm gonna do, just from experience here, is I'm gonna go ahead and start with about 200 grams of sugar after I pull out my little base tester. I'm gonna start with 200 grams of sugar. I'm gonna put that in, get it incorporated with my sanitized stirring wand here, give a little bit of a taste, and then kind of go from there. I'll have my wife helping me taste test this today so we can get to the sweetness that she likes. This was ultimately the wine that she wanted to do. So let's go ahead and add in the 200 grams. We'll come back and then we'll talk about it. All right, so that first 200 grams of sugar is always a good taste test for me at about a 3-gallon batch. It starts to bring out a little bit of the fruit, starts to add a little bit of weight to the wine. It's not there yet, but it's a good initial starting point. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and work on sweetening this up to what I think is appropriate. I'll come back, I'll tell you exactly how much I added in terms of grams, but remember, the volume is almost impossible to match my volume here, guys. So you wanna hone in on the final specific gravity. That's what you kind of shoot for if you wanna sweeten it like I do. However, at this point, this is entirely personal preference. So you might like it dry, no back sweetening at all. You might like it a little sweet. You may like it way sweeter than I like it. So just based upon your own flavor profile and what you guys like, this is really your preference, but I'll tell you what I got my wine to in terms of that sweetness. All right, the science experiment is done. I added in 650 grams of sugar total to get to the sweetness that I like, that my wife loves. So it is at a 1.022 final gravity. I started at, remember I fermented down to 0.998, so just below 1.000. I went up 24 points in sweetness to get to the sweetness that I like. But remember, yours is your preference and whatever you like, that's just what I did. But this, let me tell you, this is gonna be a showstopper winner right here. If it was state fair time, this one would be going into the state fair for, well, the wine competition. On the nose, it's immediately that apple. Even if you didn't know what this was made with, you would know that this is an apple wine. On the tongue, right in the front end into the middle of the tongue, it's a bright, nice, rounded apple. There's a little bit of acidity, which is nice because the finish, as I'm still talking, it's still finishing. So the finish is like medium. It's not just short, but it's like a medium finish, which is nice. That gives it a little bit of complexity when you're drinking it. And you never want to have a wine that is just like sugar water. That doesn't have any kind of structure to it as you're kind of drinking it. At least myself, and I believe a lot of other wine and mead drinkers. And because we're at about that 60-day range, because this took so long to clear, that 2-month range, you already have some age to it. It already tastes well incorporated and just put together. I'm very, very happy with this. If you can't tell, by the way, you're gonna have to make this one. So we have our sanitized corks here on the table. We have our bottles here. Out of a 3-gallon batch, you would expect to get 15 full-size bottles, so these 750 milliliter bottles. But I also, if you watch my videos, you know that I use half sizes or splits. These are exactly half the size of one of these full-size bottles, which is great for giving out to friends and family, or just to drink and split. It's exactly 2 full-size glasses between you and the wife, or you and whoever. You can expect to get 15 full-size out of here, or do the math if you're gonna do the small ones. Right now on the rack here on the bottle tree that I love, go check that out, it's in the description. My corker's in the description as well. Takes all the hassle out of it. But I think I'm gonna get about 8 to 9 full-size bottles and about 9 to 10 of the smaller bottles. So let me bottle these up, we'll come back and I'll show you the label and we'll close this video out. All right, there you go, filling it up with that bottle wand. Again, everything that I use is in my description in that store. If you guys need anything at all during your bottling or your must building phase or any kind of stuff like that, all of that's in that store. It's really organized for you guys. And the floor corker over there, love that thing. If you're going to be bottling at all on a frequency, that thing will save you so much time and effort. So, all right, bottle these up and we'll talk about it. Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to the golden awesomeness of our Honeycrisp apple wine. So we got it all bottled up. I don't know if you can see me over the bottles, but I thought that was too much fun. My table here goes up and down depending on what I'm doing with YouTube videos and with wine and whatnot. So I thought that would be some fun. So we got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of our full-size bottles and a half one inside of the fridge right now that I'll be drinking tonight. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our splits. So 8 full-size bottles and 10 splits. I think that's a pretty good haul. All right, guys, there you have it. That is our Honeycrisp apple wine. Golden hour. Come on, that is so fitting this wine. I mean, let's look at it. It is absolutely beautiful. It's my wife's label there. I think she did a great job on it. It looks awesome. I mean, even the gold in the sun, I mean, matches that. I mean, come on. This is awesome. Just super excited. Every time a wine like this turns out as good as it is, and this one tastes amazing. This is like, I keep saying this because I think the wines keep getting better and the processes keep getting better. But this one is like definitely top 3. I think when this is chilled, I can't wait. I have one in the fridge right now that's chilling. I can't wait to taste it when it's cold. I think it's going to be amazing. So you got to make this wine. Awesome wine. So let's close this video out. If you learned anything from this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you like this content, please subscribe. Just a small channel trying to grow here, and all those likes and subscribes, they really do help the channel get out there, get in front of people, share it with your friends and stuff like that. And it really is helpful. I just love to share the making of wine and the passion of wine and mead making. It really is something I thoroughly enjoy, and I hope that you do too. And if it's new to you, trust me, welcome to the rabbit hole. And until the next time, cheers.